All right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of the MLS Fantasy Insider. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I know it started a little bit later than I had intended, but it should all be good. Ashley will be joining us momentarily, and when she does, we'll be sure to switch the view that is here on YouTube so that we have a nice little 4-screen layout, depending upon where people are in the layout. That's the thing, is it never really puts people in the same place twice, and so I have to stay on top of that. But hello, welcome. Hey Eric, hey Megan, hey Jean, hey Chandio, how's Azeb, how's everybody doing? What is going on? Everyone who's joining us, thank you so much. Let's see here. I don't think we need to wait much longer. Like I said, Ashley will be joining us. We've got all of our stuff lined out. I'm just making sure my links are good, and so we will get started right now. Socials out as well, if you be so kind. Please do retweet the social that's out there, and if this of course is your first time joining us on YouTube, thank you so much. Likes, subscribes, always helpful.
Weeder.com.
Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the MLS Fantasy Insider, our review of round 9 and preview of round 10. This episode is brought to you by the number 3, which is also the amount of goals scored, points earned, and total red cards given to Sporting Kansas City. Actually, brought to you by the amazing MLS Fantasy Insider Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we're able to keep this project going. And final announcement of this week, be sure to have joined the Patreon community at the level that you want, so that on March 1st I can run the report to have the most accurate report for where everybody's levels are, so I can get the swag sorted out and start posting the links for the Fiverr options for this year's magnet and pin for the Patreon community to pick. So head over to patreon.com/MLSFI to find out more about that and the various tiers of support that we have. I'm your host, Reid Connolly from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight I'm joined by my partners in fantasy, Blayne Riffle. Ashley will be joining us momentarily, and our special guest, I would like to welcome Tyler, aka Ranchinator, from the MLS Fantasy Boss Differentials, and of course the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord. How are you all doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. Had a good differentials week, so feeling good about that.
Oh, Blayne, he beat you. He beat you.
Yeah,
I did.
Something.
I'm just slow today.
I saw you take a drink, so I said something.
Slow on the up. They're taking advantage of those opportunities when they come. Well, thank you. Yes, I know you had been a little bit down on yourself in your last differentials article at the beginning, but good to see you coming on strong. And there she is. There is Ashley joining us right there.
Woman of the hour.
That's right.
Always on this place.
Just getting started, so you have not missed.
Oh, I did it.
Anything, Ashley. In fact,
Actually, she missed a lot. She missed me beating Blayne to the punch of the intros.
That's right.
What?
So you did.
Oh, it's my dream.
And actually, more importantly, of what you've reminded.
Recording in progress.
That's correct. Just being here.
So I can absolutely fix everything and do the editing for this. So, but thank you, everyone. We are here, all of us, to talk about the takeaways from round 9 and preview round 10. Should be an interesting round with everything. There's a lot to navigate this week. So let's just start out with some of our expectations versus realities from this past round. As for myself, and a quick wrap up of our points, I scored 95 points this round, which I thought was definitely respectable. I think the highest score was 115, and so 20 points off of top. That's definitely in the higher end of where you likely saw some rises if you were in that 90 point. If you're in chat, go ahead and share how you all did. Would love to see that with our community right here. Just had a couple of duds. I mean, Ladero didn't do well, which Ashley was not high on him last week, and then Bai didn't do well for me either. And then I didn't hit with all of my bench, but I know for the past couple of weeks ago we were talking about switcheroos versus auto-roos, and I had 3 auto-roos set up, but I left a sizable portion of money in my bank, which Ashley was like, you should be spending that on your bench person. And I saved it because the move I did was I think I left like 6 or 8 million in my bank with the team, and I waited until I saw everybody on my bench, which I had Bossy, Gazdag, and Wagner down there, and I didn't care for Wagner's 4 or Bossy's 3. I loved Gazdag's 11, and because I thought I could do better, I had saved that Atlanta game to the end, and I had enough points where I could have brought in either Lennon or Gigi, and at the end I decided to go with the forward, and so I only got 4 points from Gigi there, but that was better than either of the points that my bench players would have brought in. So I used the auto-roo this week, as well, the auto-roo and the switcheroo this week. So it's a nice little setup right there. Won almost all of my head-to-heads, including one that we'll talk about in just a second. But as far as expectations for versus reality, I have 2 this week. First one, Charlotte versus Columbus. I expected an easy win. I don't know if that's the right way to say, but I think I, at least, and maybe several of us, expected a win for Columbus going into this game. Charlotte had been struggling, and Columbus had been doing very well, and so we were all targeting players like Zella to do well for us this round, or others, and that was not what happened. The reality was it was a 1-0 victory for Charlotte, and I think this shows the difference that it's making on the fantasy points for Swiderski to be at that number 10 playmaker role. I don't think this really impacts what we feel about Columbus. This was betting mostly against Charlotte on the road, trying to go with some of those key Columbus players. Road teams are always kind of risky with form, but Swiderski being a sub 10 million forward, playing out of position in a midfield number 10 playmaking role, is very attractive as a potential, I think, bench play going forward, because he's going to be in much better positioning to get bonus points from key passes and passes in general, and anything that he's right there, plus the goal threat that he's always going to be. And as we've talked about in years past, a bonus point producing forward tends to be the kind of forward that you're going to want to look towards as a good fantasy option, because of that higher floor and better ceiling that you're going to get. So that's the quick expectation. But otherwise, Charlotte's not going to be a main team you're going for. Columbus still going to be a main team. So that's kind of still the basic fantasy there, but definitely Swiderski as a bench option for now.
Yeah.
I think is.
I was interested in seeing his spot. It's not even like the forward part of the, like, a winger. He's like the backside of a winger, just in front of the defender.
I mean, he's making the plays, and so he's. I don't know if it's true number 10, but yeah, he is. He is back there being able to.
Oh no, he's not on the 10. He's on the right side.
Yeah,
so it's a playmaker.
He's playing a very Gressel-like role out there.
Yeah, like the 8. He's like an 8 on the right.
Okay, I guess I was just watching some replays, so I was mistaking it. But
he might be cutting in, but he's placed on the right.
But he's in a much better position to generate bonus
agree.
points than before.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway in general, regardless of what the replays looked like to me and where his actual position. And of course, the second game, Cincinnati versus Portland. I expected Cincinnati to bounce back after that St. Louis beatdown that they had. But the reality was it was a more even game than I had expected. Again, Acosta's points were low, not consistent, and I think this is continuing to be the risk that we've talked about fantasy-wise of where his production is. Was not generated as much this time from being all over the field. It had more to do with a continuing conundrum that's going to be in Cincinnati is, even with Brenner gone, which forward do you want? Because with Santos up there with Vasquez, Santos was able to play as this more target hold-up role several times very effectively, and that was an outlet. And then he was generating some of those bonus points as well with good crosses and opening up space for Vasquez. So as with Houston in the past and with other teams, with LAFC that we've talked about, Cincinnati some last year, Santos Vasquez, that's going to be a decision for you to make. There's some bonus point potential there with Santos, but raw goal scoring opportunities could be coming more for Vasquez with form, and some questions with Acosta. And of course, as continues with his 9 points, the ever ongoing conversation of, is Barreal worth it for his points and his price? And I took him this week.
Yeah.
I took him this week. So that's going to be a good conversation forward, I think, as we go. And he got the assist, so that was one thing. He's not always getting those, but this week he did, and so it paid off for a lot of people. And I don't want to disrespect anybody from Portland who's listening, because you equally have fantasy takeaways from this game. Evander is definitely getting into those threatening positions that we were hoping he was going to be in as a fantasy option early in the season. And also Asprilla is worth considering as your bench play as well. I mean, he was just doing crazy things.
The maniac. Yeah.
Don't remind me of Asprilla.
He is a maniac. And so definitely two options there. Some questions about Portland. I mean, we've talked about McGraw as well as a bonus point producer, but at least there in the attack, I think there are two potential attacking options that you could maybe not be at the top of your list, but worth a switcheroo, or at least maybe considering as a fourth or fifth player, just depending on the right matchup, because they had some very good looks and some very aggressive opportunities for them there.
They're no longer the hard bet against that we've kind of seen them being this season.
Very true.
Good offenses you were taking against that defense pretty regularly, and you take a good defense against them because they couldn't score. Now they're showing they can score, which is always good to note in fantasy. You can't bet defense against them quite as much anymore.
Ashley, what about you?
Are you not going to announce your head-to-head?
I will in the next segment.
Okay, just checking. I did okay. 91, which is nothing I think to complain about, but I made some kind of like day of decisions that bit me. I went Chanot over Alex Roldan. I just didn't. I understood the cross potential of Minnesota and all of those things. I just really was nervous about how Seattle would bounce back from that Portland game. So I went with Chanot, which I thought was more likely. Obviously wrong. I did a bunch of back and forth between Zella and Espinoza right before rosters locked. Obviously that was a mistake going with Zella. But I did have Santos. I put him on my bench as soon as I saw that he was starting. And I also had Gazdag and held out for Almada. Almada was just 7, but the way some of our better midfielders played this week, 7 was fine. I also made a decision. I tried to ask Reid and Blayne for help, and only Reid responded, and they weren't very helpful because I get very needy with last-minute decisions.
You can always text me.
I know, I will now. I had this conundrum of doing exactly what Reid was talking about, which is, do I hold out my striker spot for Gigi, and then if he doesn't play, he's my scrub, because I had Lennon and Almada going into the last game. And then I also had a very strong feeling about Chicharito for the week, but I thought, he always lets me down. Do I actually want to do it? And I ended up doing Chicharito, who was better than Gigi, but not by much. And I also could have kept Lennon had I scrubbed Chicharito for Gigi, which would have been more point producing. But these are the last minute decisions I struggled with this week. I
did all that I could with the cell reception that I had.
I'm just giving you shit. It's not your job to tell me what to do, right? But I also will begrudgingly say that I won most of my head-to-head this week, including one against Patrick, who always beats me. And it was unfortunate because the Chicago goal is what gave me the win over Patrick and almost cost Atlanta the game. So I had very little enjoyment out of that until Atlanta scored the second, and then I felt better about it. But always a good one playing against Patrick. Some takeaways that I had: expectation versus reality for Nashville and LAFC. I honestly expected LAFC to win. I haven't been super impressed with Nashville as a team. There's some fantasy potential there each week, but even when I saw the rotated lineups, I still thought that LAFC would at least take a point, which they did. But the reality was Mukhtar and Bouanga both got a goal, and it was a pretty gritty game. I love watching Bouanga, and I think that Mukhtar is starting to get in a little bit of a better rhythm, which is really good to see for fantasy. LA Galaxy and Austin, expectation versus reality. I thought that the Galaxy would win. They were one of the last winless teams. They finally got that W. The reality was that Chicharito did get a goal, got on the score sheet. That's good for him. And then Puig was finally doing everything that a lot of us thought he would different weeks this year that he hasn't really been doing yet. Great week for him. I think I saw, and I apologize if I'm saying this wrong, I think I saw it was Panda who captained him last minute.
Yes.
Just an absolute beauty of a move, just to do.
He said it was the smartest stupid move he's ever done.
Yes, so just loved seeing him finally produce. He's a player I really liked last season.
Catapulting him up to 9th place overall, by the way.
Get it, Isaac. And then I'll let Tyler add on to this if he has more to say. But for Seattle, Minnesota, I expected Seattle to win. But the reality was that they just barely won. And most important for fantasy is that they kept that home shutout streak going. Still no goals scored on that Seattle team at Lumen Field, which is something I think we can carry into a couple more games as the next home game is against Sporting. So just a good stat to look at. Rusnak getting on the score sheet, not something you see a lot from fantasy. Joao Paulo, though, picked up a ton of extra points. And was made, I think, team of the week this week.
Yep.
Which is something to pay attention to. And then, of course, Alex Roldan, 14 points. Another great outing for him for fantasy point production. So, yeah.
A couple of things I want to say about that game specifically. Since I was there, I got to watch it. What I noticed, most importantly, fantasy-wise, that's going to make a huge impact, Alex Roldan was playing higher than Rusnak most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy that was playing all the way up front with the forwards. He was the guy cutting in. Rusnak was more playing like a right back with Alex above him.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that during most of the game.
Remember, Alex Roldan was signed to the Sounders as a right wing.
Yes, he was.
And the Schmetzer converted him to be a right back.
Yeah.
And that is how he's been able to start and play and have success. So,
but the other thing was, I saw Joao Paulo as a third center back a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then something just to throw out there, if a Bear is starting and Shu is starting, don't go either of them. They do not they're not on the same page at all. They look really bad together.
Good insight.
So I would say if you see both of them starting together, don't go either of them.
And to note, Rui Diaz is out a few weeks.
Yeah,
so
that'll be coming up. Yes.
It might be Aber, it might be Jordan Morris, but yeah, Aber and Chu do not have the chemistry that Jordan and Chu have.
Yep.
All right. Tyler, what else do you have for us?
All right. I will start by saying I got 93 points this week. Got point corrected down from 95. I would have been tied with Reid. But Rubio lost 2 points overnight. And he went from and I got knocked down to 93, which also knocked me down from overall rank 46 to 48 and FCL 11 to 13. But I think that's still respectable. I like being in the top, and I'm actually consistently top 50, which is rare for me.
It's good.
Yeah, feels good. A little bit of a takeaway is, of course, Reid had to give me the DC game.
I did.
So you did, right?
I did.
Because of Pines?
Yep.
So I'll start with the DC side. Going into this game, I did expect a DC win because I have not liked the way Orlando have been playing, and I've seen DC starting to produce goals. I did not expect the number of goals that were scored. I thought it would be like a 1-0 game, maybe a 2-1 game, maybe, but 3, that's a surprise to me from DC. And I think the cog that's moving it around is Funtas is finally healthy and he's moving around the field. Whether he's opening lanes for Benteke or giving a pass to Click or just finding his own goal, he's doing a lot for the team, and it's helping DC score goals. On the Orlando side of things, I still don't know what to expect of the midfield. Whether it's Ojeda or Pereira or Facundo Torres. It reminds me of Houston back in the day when it was Elise, Kyoto, and Manitas, but it's a worse version of them. A much worse version. Where you can try to pick the best of the three, but you're only going to get like 5 or 6 points. Like, you're not going to get a super high score. And then the other thing I want to say for any Orlando people listening is Duncan McGuire the best draft pick you guys have had since DK?
I was gonna say you're forgetting DK, but yeah.
No. Since DK, I think McGuire is the best pick that they've had. Like, he's been really good for them so far in limited minutes. The other game that I'm going to go over is RSL versus San Jose. I was expecting San Jose to win this game, so I was a little surprised at the results, although I understand with it being at altitude, that could be the reason why, that there's always funky things at altitude. Although if you read my article, you would think, oh, there's no way he thought that San Jose was going to win this game. One thing to note, very important fantasy-wise, Carlos Andres Gomez has now scored back-to-back 12-point games at home for RSL. Is that sustainable? Definitely not. But is that still impressive and something to keep an eye on? For sure. It was Charlotte and San Jose, but San Jose's actually been pretty good defensively this year. So I think even if you scrap the Charlotte game, that San Jose 12 is really impressive. The other thing to note is Savarino looks back like his 2022 self, where he's getting a lot of goal contributions all the time. So that he's on 3 straight games with a goal, and I think 2 of those have an assist also. On the San Jose side of things, is Christian Espinoza matchup proof? I would say he is, because he's scored 9, 7, 10, 5, 9, 14, 10, 8, 8, and the away games were 9, 5, 10, 8. Like, I don't know what more you need to be matchup proof.
He's also got goals in the last 4 straight.
Yeah, he's got my vote right now for MVP. I know Almada's out there, so that's a very controversial thing to say, but I would say Espinoza has my vote right now, just based fantasy-wise. He has my fantasy MVP vote right now. But I think the next 3 to 4 games with the LAFC, LA Galaxy, and then LAFC again is going to be the telltale sign for if he is really matchup proof. Blayne.
Yeah, I had an 84 this week, so not great. Wish it would have been a little better. I was busy again this weekend. My triple Red Bull defense against Montreal failed. Expectations versus reality, that game was huge on my radar. I put a lot more stock into the Red Bull defense. Thankfully, they were not very expensive and didn't really cost me much, and my pivots from there were great. So it didn't hurt me too bad, but yeah, I did not expect Montreal to come in scoring like that. And I mean, it happened to be an own goal that blew up the clean sheet to start with, which always is frustrating when you go heavy on a team. But yeah, Red Bull just doesn't look like that strong defensive team. They look like they were built to be, and then Montreal finally got something going. If that offense is going to get going a little bit, you can't bet against them quite as heavily, although I still don't think they're that great of an offense right now. But my 84, I was able to pivot and grab a second Seattle defender. Klinsmann, because of the money issues, I downgraded Fry to Klinsmann, which didn't hurt me at all. Was able to pick up some points here and there. I think my biggest mistake on the week from where I was starting at was I dropped Almada for Zelarayan, saved a few points, didn't want to risk the injuries, didn't know what was going to happen, didn't really want to pivot to anybody on that last game if Almada didn't start. So I dropped him and lost a few points there. And then I stuck with Bossy. I thought Houston was going to be good. I should have gone with it when I saw him starting. That Sergio Santos up top was the much better play. But I just didn't think of it. I was busy at the time and stuck with a 3-point bench player. Otherwise, I would have been able to replace a 2 in my lineup with a 15. I mean, that would have been huge for me. That would have done everything I needed to for the week. So overall, my score not great. Over-reliance against Montreal kind of bit me, but I'll probably stick with it until I see them really prove they can do it. I think that's more telling about how bad Red Bull are right now than it is on Montreal really figuring anything out. Other game that really kind of shocked me, expectations were low-ish going into it. Philly and Toronto. Two teams that have struggled this year. Toronto's not been a good defensive team, and I was shocked to see Philly get 4 goals on them. I expected a goal or two, but not that. Not Uri getting a hat trick. So Toronto's still a bad defense, but Philly finally found a way to score, which kind of broke my expectation for them. And then Toronto's offense against a good Philly defense that's been underperforming. Osorio looks fantastic right now. I think the stats are coming in. He had over 100 completed passes.
100.
For the week.
I sent you guys something crazy, right? What was that? It was like,
I think yours said 105 and Tyler told me 112 before the show. I just know it's over 100 completed passes and an assist, and he ended up with a 13 or a 14
2
for
assists.
the round.
Yeah, 2 assists. He's the first player to complete at least 100 passes and assist multiple goals in an MLS match since they started tracking that data.
Yeah. Unreal numbers for him. Insigne started and got a goal in the game. That's huge news getting him back. Toronto's offense just is looking better and better all the time. But probably the weirdest takeaway I have is covering my own teams, Sporting versus New England. That first half was all New England. That's all what we expected going into it. Sporting's not playing well. They got bossed around by New England. And it was a 2-0 game at halftime for the home side. And then Sporting comes in second half, puts in a goal pretty quick, and then follows it up with almost an immediate red card. And 10-man Sporting looked better than New England for almost the entire second half. Take that what you will. Like, Sporting has not been playing well. They look better as a team when they're down a man, and it's been that way. This is their 3rd red card of the season. They always look like a better team when they're down a man. I don't know why it is, but that worries me about New England a little bit. If they're getting bossed around by a 10-man squad, or were they just complacent, or I don't know what's going on there, but that's not a good look at home when you've got an MVP caliber player running that team. Doesn't look great, but Brioni hit big. That's probably the biggest fantasy takeaway we had. I mean, he got 2 goals there. They're down Wood, they're down Bo, and Brioni had a claim to that spot, lost it, but it looks like he's trying to claim that spot back for his own. So he may be the starter going forward. And Reid, I'll just skip my last point for the sake of time.
That's not a problem there. I will do one quick comment is I will say part of that Philly-Toronto is this is the first time Philly had a little bit of a break from CCL. So that's why I had Gazdag on the bench. Wasn't sure it was going to happen. We'll talk more about the CCL picture coming up. But I think that was something to consider is that CCL impact and the brief little break. And so I think that's going to factor into a couple of our discussions coming up in other segments. Preview right there of things to come. But that's all that we have for our expectations versus reality. Covered a lot of good stuff. I think I'm surprised that we're still covering so many games at this point of the season, but things are still developing, and you can still have valuable insights from these teams as we're continuing to build our budgets and earn our points as we push for the Champions League. We're getting near the end of this second qualifier, so it's still not out. Tyler is going to make it. I feel it. You're going to make that Champions League, so
I hope so.
You're going to be right there, and so many good people along with him. A quick shout out: the top 10 of the game right now, MLS Fantasy Boss Discord members, all of them right there. So this community is amazing. So many people doing so well, and it's awesome to see that happen. Congratulations to all of you, and I know there's more than the top 10, so congratulations to everyone, no matter where you are, who is playing and having fun and doing so well. But there is still information to talk about as far as our leagues and the housekeeping for round 10, and that is coming up after our break. Okay, I will insert the Patreon plug for this break.
The main thing to talk about with Houston, I would say, is I don't know if you know, Blayne. They are also unscored on at home so far.
Yeah, I didn't have that stat. Chat, the other point I had was Houston, Miami. I think Houston's solidifying as a defensive team with
Yeah.
a few key options that, in good fixtures, they're making it.
You can mention that during our defender section.
Well, we've
they're
talked about
playing-
Herrera.
Yeah, the bye weeks.
Good, fair point. No, fair point.
We've talked about Herrera enough when we picked him. I think he's really the only one besides Bossy, and we kind of throw him out there too.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Right, and welcome back. We're here talking housekeeping for round 10. But first, let's do the update for our community leagues, which we did not do last week. The Champions League, Half Century City is leading with a record of 8-1-0. We have a lot of different names this week, so I'm so excited to see that. A lot of people are hitting the top of these various pro rel leagues that we're in, so it's awesome to see. Over in our Veterans League, Sombrero FC is on top based on points. In our homegrown league, Manischewitz United is the lone 8-0-1 on top right there. Over our Discovery League, we do have two teams who are tied with a record of 8-0-1, but it's Hey Ricky, You're So Fine by points in that one right there.
Easily one of my favorite names this season.
Well, that was amazing. I butchered it the first time, so I was glad that you stayed on top so I could actually do it justice this time. Going on to our MLS Fantasy Boss community leagues, the Discord head-to-head, we have Spirit Flyers, who is the lone 9-0-0 undefeated. I think the only undefeated player on this list right now. I don't know, Ashley, if the veterans are undefeated right there, but
there's more than one.
okay, there's still some people battling it out there, but
Yes. But
very
the
few
point
people.
gap is significant.
I love these head-to-heads. Moving on to our Patreon head-to-head league, we have 5 teams who are tied with a record of 7-0-1, but it's sloppy stakes by points right there. And then over to the MLS Fantasy Insider Experts Invitational. I believe we have a new leader this week, Black and Red, with a score of 8-0-1. And another important update for the MLS Fantasy Insider Experts Invitational. We forgot to mention it last week because we didn't cover the leagues, but it was a derby week here at MLSFI, and it was myself versus Blayne head-to-head. I think we were tied going into the last game, and then some of the switcheroos and that defensive pain
I was
that came for you.
following this. I think more than you guys were, because you were tied going into the last game, and only Reid had shared his team. And Blayne wasn't on the show last week, and I was just perplexed as to how this was going to work out. I think I told you guys before the Seattle game that you were playing each other.
You did. I was like, oh, Snoop.
Yeah.
And yeah, but no, I had that. My auto-roos and my switcheroos came through, and I won the Fantasy Insider Derby between Blayne and myself, and I will call it a derby because that is the correct way to say that word.
Oh.
I'm from Kentucky. That's how we do it.
I was going to say, your southern roots are really showing.
The Kentucky thing, the whole derby
Welcome
thing
in.
there. Yeah.
If
But
only I had gone Sergio Santos and won that game with those 15
if-
points with your own guy.
if wishes were fishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If wishes
man.
were fishes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I had him and I switched him out. I switched him out for Chicharito.
Ooh.
Ooh,
Rough
I
rough
know.
times. But let's move on to actually talking about round 10 now. Again, congratulations to everyone who's doing so well in all of our leagues. Round 10 is breaking the pattern that we had from the past few weeks. The games start on Saturday, April 29th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time with Nashville versus Atlanta. So we got away from everyone starting at 7:30 for this week. We do still have a bunch of 7:30 and 8:30 and some 9 and 10:30 games as well. But we do have the first game of Nashville versus Atlanta kicking off at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And we again have one game on Sunday, April 30th at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, which is Minnesota versus Dallas. So a lot of opportunities for setting up switcheroos and autoroos this week, especially when you consider that nobody is on a double game week and we have 3 teams. I did not mistake that like I did at the beginning. This is not Sporting Kansas City joke. 3 teams are on a bye this week. We have LAFC, Philadelphia, and Houston. So you have plenty of options to get yourself some 4.0 scrubs this week from any of these teams. So it will not be hard to activate your switcheroos and your autoroos this round. However, there is still going to be things are still going to be things to keep up with this week because we have Open Cup and we have Champions League games being played on Tuesday and Wednesday. And it's pretty much everybody. I wrote down all the teams and I did not check to see if it was everybody, but on Tuesday we have Charlotte, New England, St. Louis, and Sporting Kansas City all playing at home for Open Cup. And then we have Minnesota and San Jose on the road with Open Cup. Keep an eye on those rosters because there could be rotations, there could be not. Check and see how that impacts this fantasy week. On Wednesday, we have Cincinnati, Atlanta, Columbus, DC, Chicago, Nashville, Colorado, Seattle, and Portland all playing at home on Wednesday in Open Cup. And then we have Miami, Houston, and Real Salt Lake playing on the road for Open Cup. Again, check the rosters. If I went too fast, just head over to the schedule section at MLSsoccer.com. You can easily see all the teams listed right there. As for Champions League, that is on Wednesday, and it is MLS versus MLS. Yes, we have Philadelphia versus LAFC for this first round of this next part of the Champions League. Keep an eye on that roster right there. Definitely will have impacts for next week. Both of these teams are not playing this week, but just see how hard they go and see what happens. Philly versus LAFC on Wednesday in Champions League. So those are the teams who are playing, but as always, red cards, injuries, all sorts of nonsense that happens. The Mega Reference is here to keep you up to date. And Blayne, you or Tyler, who would like to guide us through this week?
Blayne doesn't
Tyler
have
does the work.
document,
I let
so
Tyler
got
do it when he's here.
They're both
Yeah.
trying to pan it off to each other.
Well, Tyler does the work.
I know. I said
anyways.
Blayne doesn't have the document.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't understand. Well, then go for it, Tyler.
Okay, I will start with the good news. The new center mid signing for Miami, Arroyo, I think is how you say his name, got his first minutes, which is always good. I believe he's the Gregory replacement for this season. I'm gonna go ahead and skip over Van Zier because we don't need to talk about him. So I will start with news that came in today. Is Mohamed Jahiz for DC was arrested in Sweden today, and he for assault of some sort, and he's suspended by both MLS/DC indefinitely for now. So he probably is going to be out for a long time. And then I'll go into actual cards that we've seen. Oh, look, Ricky Pooch for LA Galaxy is on yellow card accumulation. He will be out this week. Kyle Duncan for the Red Bulls is out on yellow card accumulation. Jared Stroud for St. Louis is out on yellow cards. He has been producing for quite a bit, so that's an important one.
He's my guy.
Kind of a cool name to say. Ilias Iliadis for Montreal got a red card. So he will be out. I think he's their holding midfielder for Montreal. And then, as Blayne knows, Andreu Fontes got a red card for Dogso, and he is out. Injury-wise, a little update on Christian Roldan. He was in concussion protocol, did not pass tests, so that's why he was out for this past weekend. He cleared quite a few tests today and was I believe cleared to do light training.
He's training on the side.
What I heard. Yeah, light training. So he's expected back this weekend. Raul Ruidiaz, he picked up a hamstring strain after taking a shot in practice and is now out for 4 to 5 weeks.
Oof.
I bet it didn't even go in.
It probably didn't. Because they said shot, not goal,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I'll show you how to say this. Yorgus Yakimakis is out.
I was so close to that. Play it back, Reid.
GG.
GG. Yorgus Yakimakis. He got subbed again for injury, and when the trainer came on, you could clearly read his lips saying same thing to the trainer. So I think if it were me and I was Gonzo Pineda, hold him out for a week because he clearly has something bugging him and needs a little bit of a rest.
Yeah.
Love you, Atlanta guys, but he needs a rest. Another big name to keep an eye on, Klaus has a
I
leg
saw it
injury.
today.
He's out for 10 to 14 days, so about 2 weeks. Brian Acosta for Colorado has either a leg or hamstring. I wasn't sure which one that was. And then 2 big injuries for RSL were Anderson Julio and Brian Vera. Vera has been their right defender, I believe.
Yeah.
Will Sands, I just got an update from Discord. Will Sands for Columbus. He's been playing kind of the out of position right wing, I believe, or no, left wing out of position. He got hit really hard and has a nasty knee injury where he was in tears, and people believe he's going to be out pretty much the season, like ACL, MCL. I saw that Obina Nwobodo was subbed out. I think he was just banged up. Did you see anything? Any update on that, Reid? Or
I didn't see any update. He got a little banged up, and he also had a pretty early card as well. So
yeah, so it could have just been a banged up sub, but it listed it as injury, so I just included it just in case. That's all I have.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tyler, for those updates. And you can keep up to date with all of the injuries and cards and other nonsense that goes on in our beloved league over at the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord, where you can see the full differentials. Sorry, you can see the full.
You could see those.
You could see the full differentials, but we can see all of the mega reference over in that community. The easiest way to find it is MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord. But now we're going to take a quick break as we get ready.
Actually, one more thing was Bernadeschi was subbed at halftime. We're not sure if that was a planned sub or if that was an injury sub. Bernadeschi is quite a big name to keep an eye on, too.
That is good call. Everything else good?
Yeah, that's all.
All right. Now we're going to take a quick break as we get ready to talk about our player picks for round 10. Just come in there at the last minute being like, oh, wait, there's more.
But wait.
We've got more people.
Rest in peace.
Okay, so we got all this. We have
Hacking
a
her
little
up
talking
loud.
section. Let's not go too long with our talking points. So I think we're doing okay.
Yeah. I mean, we have so much consensus going down.
Yeah.
Until midfield.
Okay. There's
I get to be
social.
that weird.
People do please share this section as well. I think this is the one people really like to listen to, so please do share that. And we're back to talk about our player targets for round 10, at least on a Monday after games, about 24 hours after games are over. So let's start, as always, with keepers and defenders. We do have some consensus picks right here. We have a consensus keeperoo in the house.
Has that ever happened?
I don't think that's ever...
I don't think that's ever happened in the history of MLSFI.
I don't. So, I mean, if you guys have others to just throw out there just for consideration's sake, feel free. But everyone was going with Schulte to... Did I say it wrong again?
No, Schulte.
Okay, I think I said it wrong a couple weeks ago, but...
You said you flipped the L and the U.
I did. So, Schulte to Takaoka. So that's Columbus, and I'm not going to misspell that one.
Vancouver.
And Vancouver as the keeperoo right there. So, again, if you guys have anything else to throw in, please do. But, yeah.
I'll throw on when it's my turn.
When it's your turn. And then we have two consensus-ish defenders. Everyone likes Gressel, and then everyone is also looking at Columbus for a player. So whatever your Columbus player du jour is right there. Ashley, what else do you want to add?
I also want to say that I did see today that Room was training in full. Eloy Room for Columbus. I don't think everything I've seen that shouldn't make a difference for this weekend, but just for planning purposes, if you care if it's Room or not, I guess there's a chance that it could be. But
I will straight up say I will not go Columbus if Room is in that.
So I just want to throw that out there for just to ruin the one great keeper we've ever had. The fact that I suppose there's a possibility it might not be Schulte, but if it is, that's what we're doing. I like Gressel this week. I know it's the last game. I hate this whole one game on Sunday nonsense. I think I'm the only one who did this, but I actually like Brooks Lennon this week, even on the road. I like the crossing. I like the bonus points. I'm not expecting the shutout. I probably will get talked out of him at some point once I dig a little deeper into defensive odds, but I do like him down in Nashville. And then yeah, I like a Columbus defender, and I'm also considering a Sporting Kansas City defender.
Mhm.
But here's the thing about Sporting Kansas City and Montreal: often when two shit shows combine, an absolute shit storm erupts, and it's not always 0-0. And
We
so
learned that last week.
yeah, so I do feel like a 0-0 is what this possibly could be. If goals come, I'm leaning more towards SKC, which is where I'll get to offensively. But I have a little bit of non-data reservations when it comes to this game. But I do think it makes sense. And for reference, and I'm sure I can get talked out of this, but Farsi has been who I've picked up from Columbus most often. He's not the highest point producer, but every time I've nabbed him, it's worked well for me. So that's probably where I will land. And then with the structure, I don't hate Minnesota's clean sheet odds this week. And because they're the last game, something that I did last week, and as I said, caused me lots of headache trying to decide what to do, is I just picked up a defender from that last game, and if my bench hit, I would scrub them. That's what I plan to do this week too, because in case no one has listened to this pod before, I'm rich repeatedly. I think I have like 138.5 million now. I'm not even trying. It's just happening. It's just like I'm some, billionaire entrepreneur who just had a dream and made an app. So I do think that I might keep one of their defenders and just see how it goes.
Oh right, Columbus had traded for Mundison today, so that could be a guy to look for too.
Mm-hmm.
Good call,
Blayne.
Yeah, I don't mind that Sporting Kansas City shout out. If you're gonna go with the defender, I like Rosero in that spot. I think he's the lock in there, unless you really want Zusi and he starts. But he didn't play this week. I'm hearing it was load management more than it was an injury. But given his age and his injury history, it could very easily be some minor injury that's keeping him out too. So just watch that one. But if you're going to get away from Schulte and the Columbus goalkeeper situation, especially if Room starts, I think it's a little tight to squeeze it in because it's that, 8:30, 10:30 kickoff time. But look at Melia against Montreal. I think if it turns into a really bad game all the way around, you still got your backup goalkeeper, or Melia's known for getting those saves, and Montreal will shoot on this. One of the things I've seen with Montreal, they're not a good offensive team, but they do put up a lot of shots, which means potential bonus points for your goalkeeper. They're not good quality shots, but there are shots coming in. So I think if I was to get away from the consensus keeper route, it's probably looking at Sporting's options there because they are a little bit cheaper still. You're not spending a ton of money. You've got a defense that's shaky that gives up shots and lets them get through to the goalkeeper. It's just a chance to score some extra points right there and probably the best bang for your buck on the front end. Looking at those same basic players, although I've got a lot of just variation here because I don't like this week. This week is rough. I think there's way too many attacking options that have okay matchups, but nobody that's just a slam dunk and a lot of potential. And when this happens, I start looking to spend more money on my defense, which are a few more sure things. So like Gressel and Columbus make it real easy to go with. Shaq Moore for Nashville comes to mind. I don't know what Atlanta's going to do, but he likes to get forward. Rodriguez is crushing it with San Jose and picking up nothing but tons of bonus points all across the board. A name and a team we're not talking about enough this week after the performance last week. I think Chicago's got to come on the radar at this point. Red Bull just absolutely tanked versus Montreal. Could not put a goal in against one of the worst defenses in the league. Doesn't look good right now. Chicago's defense has been somewhat reliable, not great, but that means Shihos is a great pick right here. offensive monster on set pieces. Red Bulls have been giving up a few goals. I think this is a chance where you could take a flyer on a subpar defense that's got a really favorable home matchup and look at Chicago. Shihos is currently in my lineup and just replaced. I had Donovan Pines in there. I don't know what to expect from Charlotte on the road. Pines has been picking up bonus points like crazy, loves to get involved in the attack. Just one of those. I think you've got some bench potential with a lot of differentials here, and somebody's going to hit big on one of these differentials on defense. And I just don't know which one it is, but I don't like my forward options this week. So I'm looking at loading up on my defense and rolling the dice there. And I think I've found a few guys that I can rely on for this week.
Tyler.
Yeah, I agree with the Gressel and agree with the Moreira is usually my go-to Columbus guy. Actually, before that it was Will Sands, but after hearing that sad injury news, Moreira is my backup. Another goalie to consider, actually two goalies to consider. One is Willis. I know Ashley says she doesn't like Nashville, but I actually really like Nashville's home defense. And I think if Gigi is not in the lineup, that you could potentially get away with playing Willis. He is very expensive, but you could get away with it. And the other cheaper option would be kind of like what Blayne had touched on. I think DC has a good chance at a shutout this week. So if you want a cheap little keeperoo, you could go with Tyler Miller. And I am on the same side where I have Pines right now. I think Pines is just, he's a goal threat. He's getting bonus points. He has a decent clean sheet shout. And he's my boy. You know?
Very true. Very true. I think you guys covered... Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Rodriguez is like the go-to bonus point producer. And my random shot in the dark that I'm going to throw a dart at this week is Tim Parker.
Rodriguez San Jose. Sorry.
Yeah. Rodriguez San Jose.
I think those are good calls that you guys made. Some excellent choices, Miller. That's a really good one. You might be able to add Minnesota on there. They've been a little bit better on defense. Dallas, not always consistent scoring, but Minnesota's not been very consistent with keeping clean sheets. So maybe only one for St. Clair. But if you are struggling for some of those aroos, Minnesota is an easy one to make that happen. Not a horrible shot. You could make a sporty Kansas City, Vancouver keeperoo work if you wanted to do something like that. I don't know if you could, but any of those 8:30 and 10:30 games would be very tight if you didn't like some of the early rounds. Also, shout out. I don't think we had a couple of these other names mentioned. Roldan was a name that I saw pretty often in chat. Had some good offensive potential.
Alex Roldan traveling to RSL, one of Seattle's worst away fixtures in the history of the franchise. I know I got some flack on social media this week for being anti my own team, so I guess I should tone it down.
No, I'm gonna back you on this one because I talked up Seattle's defense against a struggling Portland team, and they just put 4 past them.
Yeah, but
I'm gonna rub salt in the wound on that one. But if Ashley says that's a bad fixture, I'm gonna go with that's probably a bad fixture.
RSL away is a historically difficult one
Hold
for
up,
Seattle.
I'm pulling up the stats.
But
and
this
it's also
is why
one that we historically rotate for, like often. And so Alex is producing quite well. But I think there are better home defenders this week than Alex Roldan.
And this is why I mentioned this players, so we can have these conversations. And then also, did we mention Ahmed as well with, I think, Vancouver?
Vancouver? No, because we said Gressel.
No, because I gave him to you.
Yeah.
I just put him on there in case you didn't mention him, because I saw you had Parker as well, and so I was like, well, I'll put him here just in case.
If you're looking for money, him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here are the stats. At Rio Tinto Stadium, Ashley is correct. There have been 14 games played at Rio Tinto Stadium. 10 RSL wins, 2 Seattle wins, and 2 draws.
So there's goals, guys, is all I'm saying.
It's tough.
Happy to be wrong.
If you're
Oh, I'd
taking
love to be
Roldan,
wrong.
it's for the offensive potential against a
Correct.
somewhat weaker RSL side. It's not for the clean sheet.
That's what we'll see.
Absolutely.
I do have to have one quick pause because for those of you who are not listening, Ashley's son and husband had a quick cameo on our stream. And Ashley, I did not realize that you were married to Tom Bogart.
Did you not know that?
No, I did not realize you were
Yeah,
married to
He
Tom
that's how
goes
she
Bogart.
gets quick updates.
Yeah, it's fast.
It was. I hadn't seen the mustache, and I was like, "Is that Tom Bogart?" There we go. Halloween costume right there in the Savage house. Let's move on to talking about midfielders. Again, we do have some consensus, but which is Zella and Lowen. But before that, we also have a discussion topic. Very quickly, your thoughts. Tyler teased this. Are Espinoza and Almada fixture proof? And the caveat has been thrown in here: when healthy and starting, which I think is a pretty big caveat to throw in there. But that's the question. Are these players fixture proof? I'm going to go ahead and say they're consistent. That is one thing you can clearly say is they are consistent, because just adding in that caveat of, well, when they're healthy and when they're starting, it's like, I mean, you could say that for everyone. But if you look at some of, and they're the two highest scoring players in the game right now with 80 points. But if you look at some of the other points, could we not be saying the same thing about Herrera, who has very also consistent points, a few lower games, but also some very consistent points from Herrera? And could we not say the same thing about Gazdag if you want to throw on another qualifier of when not in CCL or when available, because he's also had some very attractive points when he's not been rested or coming back from some CCL games. So when he is there 100%, is Gazdag not there? So I don't know if I want to slap on a fixture proof slogan to these guys, but for me, I would acknowledge they have been consistent, but I don't know if I would say they are fixture proof, because I think there have been times when we've considered fading each of these guys. So who else wants to chime in?
I think that they should be considered weekly. I think if you're looking at the games and you're making a team, consider how you can spend that $12.5 million twice for both of them at some point. I don't think they're fixture proof, but I think that you know, it's tricky because one's west, one's east, and so I feel like there's some places to go that I don't know if I would pick them. But I think it's something to consider. I do think for Espinoza, and in no way I'm trying to like counter what Tyler said, if you watch the games or if you see how he's getting some of the goals, a lot of them are bangers. Like, they're a goal that shouldn't be a goal. And on that same side, Almada has had some crazy free kick goals that are also just kind of like, obviously it's happening enough that it keeps happening, but they're not incredibly reliable. But I think that for me, that's kind of the devil and the angel of it when I think about it. It's like, okay, a lot of these goals have been crazy. Can they keep doing it? But then their points are so consistent, I have to at least consider it, if that makes sense. That's where I come in with it.
Can I compare someone to Christian?
Yeah.
What were you saying when Tati Castellanos was scoring bangers left and right?
I had Tati on weeks he wasn't playing. Like, I would never not pick him up. But that was more because Espinoza, he's not because he's good.
Espinoza's scoring bangers.
Yeah.
I think Espinoza is matchup proof, but I'm on the side that Almada is not matchup proof.
I could lean towards that myself.
Yeah.
I think based on looking at the teams that Almada has played so far, San Jose, they have a decent defense, but first week, you don't know what to expect first week. Toronto, Charlotte, Portland, and then he got shut down at home by the Red Bulls, and then NYC and Chicago. Like, those are all bad defensive teams. Besides, you could argue New York is a decent the Red Bulls are a decent defensive team, and they're good at shutting down tens. Christian Espinoza scored on New York. So I think SB is matchup proof, Almada is not.
And Blayne.
Yeah, I think they're both really close. They're the closest we've got in this current season to someone being fixture proof. But then I'm here watching him, I'm like, I could fade Almada pretty easy this week. I don't like the defense he's going against. I think where I was coming from when I originally posed this question is, I don't think road matchups really affect these two guys much. I think it's opponents more than road. So they're borderline fixture proof. I love that take on Espinoza. Just it's the way he's playing right now. It's the way they play through him on the wing. He avoids the center backs.
He tracks back defensively a lot. I don't remember what week it was. At least 2 weeks ago, Reid had looked at how many defensive bonus points he got for one match, and when you watch him play, he really does go kind of box to box, which I think is contributing to some of those extra points.
Yeah, and it's doing those little things like that if you're not going to get on the score sheet, but you're still picking up 2 to 3 defensive bonus points, plus the offense is running through you for a key pass or whatever. That's what puts a guy into that fixture-proof category. And I can see he's really close. It's just really hard for me to ever accept that a winger is fixture-proof. Like, that just doesn't happen very often. And I think he's probably the closest we've ever seen from a winger to get there. But yeah, these guys are
winger where everything's funneling through him, though.
Yeah, he's like a 10. He's tricking you, Blayne. He's not really a winger.
It's a false winger.
Yeah.
False wingers, that's not even a term.
That's what we got.
But he is.
All right. Well, that was a good little quick discussion. Let's keep going on with who we are targeting, which, as we noticed, SB Almada not on our consensus picks. So, Blayne, who are you looking at?
Yeah, this was a week of just grab everybody expensive for me. I started off, grabbed Zella, Heel, Mukhtar, and then I was like, is Almada worth it on the road? And I think that one's going to be, if Zimmerman doesn't start, which he came off early, I think it was listed as an injury, but I don't know if that was precautionary or whatever. If he doesn't start, I'm more likely to go with Almada in that early game and see what happens. Nashville's a good defense, and I don't know that I think a 6 or a 7 from Almada against a good defense is enough this week. I'm not saying he's going to have a bad game, just I don't know that it's enough. Espinoza's on my list there as well. I'm worried about Mukhtar a little bit in this, even though he's one of those premier players and he should score at home. Lowen's another guy that's going to be on the list. I think that's more because he's playing Portland, and Portland has given up a lot of goals this season. And if Klaus is out, which it looks like he will be, how much does that do for Lowen on the bonus points, on taking set pieces? Is he on PKs? Like I don't watch St. Louis unless I have to. But I know what I've seen from Lowen so far. And I think if he's the focal point again, I think that does good things for his fantasy potential. And then the other name I'm really going to throw in there, because I know everybody else has got everything else, is I'm actually looking at Insigne again this week.
Is he your new Zardes?
No.
Wow.
I think he is. You picked him up in draft the week after he got hurt.
Yeah, but I robbed that guy blind on that trade.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay.
I don't know draft, so I'm not. But
I'll fill you in later on that one. But
I think he's your new Zardes.
I had him so I do play draft and I do look at it, and I had him as one of my top 5 picks for the year. I had him potentially going number 1 overall for me if I got that number 1 spot. Like that's where I was at on my evaluation of him for this year. Given the way this team is playing, given the way Osorio is playing right now, he came back, and I was like, okay, what do we do with him if he starts? I immediately threw him in my draft team because I've got him. But he came back, he played, he didn't get subbed out at 60 minutes, he went longer than that, and he scored a goal. That's a guy who wants to compete, that's a guy who's not going to let an injury keep him down. He was out, I think, 6 weeks when they said 3 to 5 originally, or 4 to 5. He stayed out a little bit longer, but I'm assuming if he's going and playing 80 minutes, he is healthy. I think this is one of those games. I like him, and he's only $9 million. We're looking at 10, 11, 12 million midfielders. We're looking at one of what I consider top 3 midfielder as a player, not as a fantasy guy, but as a player in this league, $2 million less than his contemporaries in this game. I will take a chance on that at this point and fly with it because $9 million, I'm saving money from Almada. I'm saving $3 million off Almada. I'm saving money on Espinoza right there. Like we talk about those guys. And
Why
it
are we
costs-
still trying to save money though? Like, I think we're almost past that.
because he's broke, Ashley. You and I
No,
are rich, but
I
he's
know
broke.
that's not what I'm saying. That's not
I'm
what I'm
gonna-
saying. I think we're far enough into the season now, and I think I'm a prime example of it. How many times have I said to you guys, I'm trying to price rise? I don't think I've said it once. When you get the point producers, you get the money. And so at this point in the season, I think you got to chase the points and not save
I'm not-
the money.
But I am chasing the points, but I'm
Okay.
also looking at more expensive defenders, which I've already talked about.
Sure.
I'm playing a little different strategy here because I think there's about 8 to 9 midfielders that I would really want this week. I haven't even talked about, like, I would love to get an Orlando midfielder in here.
Love.
But I don't know which one to pick.
Sure.
Like, if I could know who was going to hit going at home against LA, like, sure, give me that game. But is it going to be Torres this week? Is it going to be Ojeda this week? Like, I cannot pick which one's going to have the better week, so I'm just going to fade them both because there's too many points this week to risk getting the 3 from Orlando while the other guy gets an 11. I can't bring myself to do it. I think there's a ton of potential on this week, and when you start grabbing multiple 10 million midfielders, you start looking at pricier forwards, you start looking at a bigger defense, and making sure you get those bonus points because I don't have Barreal, but I mean, we've had Barreal and Gressel at times this year. We start looking to save money. I've got Rodriguez in my short list. That's expensive. Like, I could see going a little bit cheaper in your midfield because you've got a top player playing against a middle of the pack defense who's hungry with the hottest playmaker behind him in Osorio right now in MLS.
Well, let's not
that's a
go
take.
back too much.
Whoa.
Let's just keep talking about our
It's
picks.
so hard to walk away sometimes.
Whoa.
But we're gonna have to, Tyler.
The only thing I'm gonna add on to Blayne's Insigne idea before I go into my picks is if you look at the dream team from week to week to week, the chances of a player being 10 mil or more on the dream team is actually pretty low. Most of the dream team will be affordable options even for the new players who come in at 100 mil. So I do want to point that out. So there are good options at like 8 mil, 7 mil for anybody that doesn't have a crazy budget.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
going into my picks. I have Mr. Matchup Proof himself, Christian Espinoza. And then I think Zayla Rayon is like the chalkiest chalk pick this week. I don't see why you wouldn't have Zayla this week. Mukhtar, I'm starting to figure out that Mukhtar is like last year. If he's at home, you take him. Doesn't matter what his matchup is. He's a homeboy.
Homebody.
Couple ideas that I'm flipping between for my last 3 are, I think Leuven is one that I'm leaning towards keeping.
Are you nervous about his last 3 game point production though? At all? That's what freaked me out earlier today.
He had a big game against Cincy, but I see what you mean. Yes,
Yeah.
his last 3.
4, 4,
But if you
13,
look at his
3.
I guess if you look at his home games, it's also bad. But
Yeah.
he's on sets, and
Yeah.
from what I understand, he's also on PKs. So
Yeah.
he's like
He is.
on the borderline for me, is
Me
Leuven.
too.
One that I'm leaning towards actually keeping no matter what is Click. I feel like DC has a very good chance against Charlotte this week, because Charlotte's just really bad, especially on the road at defending. So I think Click being on set pieces, having Funtas with him, all of that, I think he's the go-to guy in the midfield. And another one I'm kind of deciding on, based on his position and who's up top, is Ledesma. I think he's a better pick over Santi Rodriguez because Ledesma is the one playing at the 10, whereas Santi Rodriguez is playing at the 9 right now. He's like a false 9. But Ledesma, in just 2 games starting at the 10, he's produced a lot of points. So, moral of the story, yes, there's a very high chance that I am fading both Heel and Almada this week. Mostly because of their matchups. I think, Blayne, you can correct me on this. I think, or not Blayne, Reid. Blayne, you don't get to correct me. I think Heel is gonna have a tough time against breaking down Cincy's defense. Do you agree with that, Reid?
Yeah, I think they could gum him up.
Okay. And then Almada I don't like because Nashville's good at home.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we've got a pretty solid core, especially with Nwobodo in the mix right there. I think we've got a good solid core, so it does have to push people out to the out wide. And so depending on what New England's got with some of those options there and where Heel gets pushed and who's going to be available up top, which we'll talk in the next segment, that it could be kind of difficult. So yeah, I could totally see that. Totally. Don't have much to add. I will just throw out a couple.
You do this every midfield. You always
I do.
Go last.
Well, then I'm going to, again, I need to go back to bolding your name and putting it in green.
Fine.
Go.
Hit record. I like Almada. My locks for me this week were Almada and Zella. And Heel. I feel worse about it now. I will probably have Mook, possibly SB, and then Lowen and Santi are kind of my bubble players. I think the rise and dip of Lowen is what's concerning me. I'm also wondering how he produces without Klaus. They're not really like a 1-2 punch, but I am wondering, how that might look. Santi looked crazy last week, and I just kind of like hopping on someone with good form who's playing a bad defense. I totally agree with what you're saying about Ledesma, though, Tyler, but that's what kind of drew me to Santi for the week. And then talking through it instead of just like throwing a team together by myself, I do worry looking at Heel's, some of his road stats so far this season, if that's the best place for him. Cincinnati
Heel's at home.
Sorry, that's a good point. See, now I'm just second guessing myself again.
I'm just second guessing based on.
He's at home, but he's versus a good defense.
It's the first versus second in the East.
Yes, it's first versus second, and I think I'm not robbing for what we're going to talk about next, but I do think what that New England lineup looks like. Veroni getting a brace is fine, but that's not like a genuine offensive threat. The front three that New England put out last week, but they were playing Sporting Kansas City, so it worked out well for them, right? So FC Cincinnati is not the same beast, and so I kind of worry what he can produce if Nwobodo's playing too. So I think I don't like dropping Heel at home. That always makes me kind of nervous, but I think there's a lot of like on the cusp options for midfield this week, and not a ton of you have to take blank. So I think that might be where kind of some of the deciding factors are this week is in the midfield. Go ahead, Reid now. I'm done.
I was going to say, I don't really have anything else to add. I'll throw out a couple of other names if people are just looking for other options. I know we mentioned Osorio earlier on, if you want to look at some of the point production from Osorio. And then if you are, as Blayne said, if you're interested in Orlando, it's Torres or Ojeda. I think Torres is edging out Ojeda a little bit, but it's sort of 6 of one, half dozen of another right there if you like those options. But I think you all covered the main players that we're going to be seeing throughout this week. So let's move on.
I do like Shandio's idea in chat of Eric Tommy this week because they're hosting Montreal. Do you have any say on that, Blayne?
His numbers are better than they were last year. He's trying too hard, and that's what everybody's saying is he's really trying to push the game. He's only got a 4 average, and he plays crazy. He's all over the place. He's just not been sharp because he's trying so hard. Okay. This could be a game where he really gets in a groove, but that midfield has not looked good all across the line, and he's suffering because of that. I think if the midfield was a little more cohesive, his numbers would go way up, and they're just not there.
Let's move on to forwards then. Tyler, who do you like? No consensus picks.
No consensus. Forwards. I currently have 3 just because I don't know what to do with my scrubs yet. So I have Taxi Funtas because he's in form, and I already talked about Click, and I talked about it in my early section. I think Funtas is the guy that runs the entire DC team, and you'll find that in common with all my forward picks. The other person that runs the entire DC, or he runs the entire Dallas team, is Jesus Ferreira. So he's my really late backup on Sunday but he's my first scrub if I need to scrub someone. And then the other forward who runs the cog is Diego Rubio. So I just have 3 forwards that play out of position most of the time. They play like that number 10 playmaking role. And they're just the person that is the playmaker for their team. So Funtas, Ferreira, and Rubio.
All right, fair. Ashley?
Literally the first person I put on my team this morning was Klaus. And then I got on the intranet and realized he got subbed hurt, and it was devastating for me. I do not in any way think that Gioacchini is a comparable option, but I think that he, for his price, is a decent play. I don't know that I'll start him, but it's definitely something I'm considering. I also put Taxi on my team pretty early, for the same reasons that Tyler's saying. I'm not against Savarino against Seattle. I also think that Swiderski is a decent shout, even though he's a road shout. And then I'm going for Shallowy as a bench play, probably. I just really struggled first glance and then second glancing strikers this week. And like I said earlier, I think that there's going to be goals in that SKC game, and I like him more than Johnny Russell. And I don't trust Polito because he just hasn't played enough in the last year and a half. I think he's the best player for goals there, but you know, I understand it's not my team, and Blayne will tell me why I'm wrong, but from looking at fantasy and watching the games, I like Shallowy the most in that spot if I'm going to pull from one of those SKC front 3. And I also think that, to echo what was the brought to you by, is those front 3 should score. It's gonna happen. I know they're not scoring, and so to pick them to not score is a more popular bet at the moment, probably a better bet. But we've watched those 3 rack up so many points in fantasy at different phases of time that I think it's inevitable that dam will break, and it's just who's kind of gonna lead it. So I think taking one of those front 3 this week, probably, like I said, just for bench play because it's all a nightmare, is a decent look. Blayne?
Yeah, I threw Polito in my list.
Okay.
I like the way he plays. Agata's, I don't know if you have this in yours. Agata has a stress fracture. He's out 12 weeks.
Oh yeah, I forgot to put that in. Yeah.
So Polito is the guy right now, and he will be starting. He's looking more involved all the time. It takes a little bit to get back in there. But I disagree with what you're saying about these 3 have given us fantasy points. These 3 have gotten it done. That midfield has been such garbage connecting with the front 3 that
Sure.
they're not getting service. They're not getting the ball. They're having to do it themselves. And when a defense can sit back 4-on-3 because there's no midfield support there, they shut that down a lot better than they used to. This isn't
Aren't they
the old
2
SKP
DPs though? Like, you got to know how to work through that. They can
try.
figure it out.
Yeah, they
They've
try.
only had 2 games altogether, right? It's only been two weeks.
Yeah,
that
it's
they
been
all
very short.
played.
And again, it was Shallowy with a great cross to Russell streaking at the back post this week for the goal. I mean, it was those 2 guys getting involved. If I were to pick one of the wingers, I think I'm leaning Russell. I just like the way he plays against this team. I feel like he's going to be the more goal-oriented player. Shallowy's not the same scorer that Russell is. I think that's the way I would lean. But yeah, I think you've got to look at this, Sporting, because I really don't have forwards I want this week. I see a lot of decent potential. I won't even say good potential. I see a lot of decent potential, but I'd rather take a bonus point defender this week than risk a 2 or a 3 from one of these forwards I see. The other guy I had on my list, and I'm hoping he starts and it's early enough I can see it, is Bernadeschi. If Insigne is back, Osorio playing the way he is, I'm okay with that. Like, I like the way he's played this year. If he's starting, I think it's great. The guy I'm really hoping to see...
How much is he?
What?
How much is he?
9.6 now.
Okay.
Oh, he's below 10.
The guy I hope starts is I'd love to see Duncan McGuire start for Orlando. That's an easy one to slot on my bench. If he hits, I can scrub my other forward out, and I'm happy.
Are you happy with him only playing under 60 though? Because he's been subbing out at 50 stuff.
Well, he's only got 2 starts on the season, I think.
Yeah, but I think they're both under 50 or under 60.
No, he went 60 first one.
Oh.
Yeah, I hope he starts. I hope they keep giving him minutes. And that's a game I like. Benteke is another guy I would love to see a little more consistency for. I think this is a week he could really go off. But again, I'm seeing more consistency on defense, so I'm really struggling to pick guys here. So I'm looking at like Bernadeschi because he's been good, and if he doesn't start, okay, I'll just stick with my one Kansas City starter and try to figure out my scrubs around that, because I just don't see a lot of guys I can rely on, and I'm struggling this week to pick forwards that I think are even going to give me more than 2 bonus points, whereas I know if I spend a little bit less money than a premium forward, I can get Rodriguez for San Jose, who's probably going to get me 4, 5, 6 bonus points, which puts me right up there, right behind a tier 1 striker that is boom or bust.
Yeah. And to go along with the SKC debate, I believe, Blayne, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Russell and Shallowy are splitting corner kicks right now, set pieces.
They take their respective sides usually.
Yeah, so it's in swingers or out swingers, whatever it is, they're splitting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So both of those forwards are a good option if you're looking for a set piece guy.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else to add for forwards. I think you guys have covered a lot of the main ones, and I don't see anything else in chat. So let's move on to our captain targets. Ashley, who do you have?
Guys, I don't have anybody right now.
Lame.
At first I thought, no, skip.
Next.
I'm leaning towards Zella, but I don't like the week he just had, and that's kind of what takes me off him. So I might feel bold and go Mukhtar, but I don't think that Atlanta is that bad. So could go either way.
14, 16, 8.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm leaning Zella. That's who I have right now. I think there's a lot of great home midfielders this week. Heel, Luke, Insigne, or Osorio, if you like that matchup. There's too many good home midfielders, but I think the one that's got the best matchup or the weakest opponent is Zella facing Miami. So I'm leaning that way to start the week. That may change as we get lineups and different news. But right now, that's the one that feels safest.
Yep.
Tyler?
Probably Breckshay.
If I could, I would, and you know it.
I think it's definitely between Mukhtar or Zayla, but looking at Zayla's home games, it's 14, 16, 8. Like,
yeah, that's what makes me want to do it.
That's the captain for me, for sure. But if I really want to be risky, but I think I have to be safe for FCL. If I want to be risky, I might be capping Click.
Look at you. That's a ranchinator pick if I've ever heard.
Definitely. For me, nothing fancy. I agree. I like that Zella matchup, and he is who I have the captain on right now. So pretty simple. I'll see what other thoughts are throughout the week, but that's it. That's all we have for the show tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and a special thank you to the people of the Discord community who had some comments about us on the show and some appreciation that they gave for just us trying to put information out so close after the end of previous weeks. Things do change. So, yeah, this is just our first reactions. Almost as soon as you can after rounds have ended, things do develop, and that's why you got to keep up with the information with our community. But thank you, though, to everyone who did make some very nice comments about what we do. It is a labor of love, and it's just increased by you all being members of this community. So I guess that was my little early plug myself, but let's go ahead and talk with plugs with everybody else. Blayne.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. It was great to see the community rally around us like that. We got a little spicy this week, and it was fun. It was all in good fun. I mean, nobody took anything offense or whatever. It was good, but I want to shout out all our guests on here: Tyler, Christian, Ari, everybody who comes on this show. It takes a lot to put your picks in front of 1,000 people and put them up there. Reid saying we don't have 1,000 listeners, but we got 1,000 people in Discord. Like, and it all gets talked about, and everybody references what we say throughout the week. It takes a lot of guts to put picks out there like that when MLS is such a tumultuous league, and we get crazy stuff happening. Like, Zella was a great pick last week, and he gets a 2 or a 3. Like, it happens. We all champion the wrong players every once in a while.
Every week
takes
we do.
a lot of guts.
Yeah.
Some of us do it more often than others.
Yeah.
But
Some of us write an article about bad picks.
yeah. But
For the content.
Yeah.
For the content.
It takes a lot to get out here and just put yourself on the line like that in front of everybody and be willing to step up and do it. So I want to say thank you to all of our guests, because that conversation kind of led me to there. We got a lot of people who don't do this regularly that come in here, and it's just like deer in the headlights, throwing out all this, and they're speaking like experts in front of a bunch of people that are going to take their word for what they're saying, and it's part of making content, it's part of putting yourself out there, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a little scary sometimes. So thank you to everybody who's been a guest on the show or wants to be a guest on the show or help support this show, because it's a lot of work and a lot of fun.
Tyler.
I'll do my serious plug is I want to thank all the teachers or other people that have been really supportive to me throughout my student teaching so far. So I'm gonna name specifically Meg, Tinkerman, and Curtis in chat. Those have been 3 that have helped me the most through this career, and I will be graduating within 2 or 3 more weeks. I'll be graduating and have my teaching certificate. So I want to thank those 3 specifically because I've bounced a lot of questions off them.
And Ashley.
I'll pretend not to be offended that you didn't reach out to me, because I've been an educator for 12 years and that's fine. But I'm very happy for you. She said with all seriousness. I have kind of a serious plug this week too. We, like Reid and Blayne alluded to, we had kind of a weird back and forth earlier in the week with people in Gen Chat on Discord that, you know, kind of made me feel some feels and feel certain ways. But I was really happy to hear about some other areas of people who play who have been following the show just because they're girls and I'm on here, and I know that they take very serious what everybody else's picks are, but that was really cool for me to hear. So I want to give a shout out for my plug to Kathy's Cookies FC, who is a player, Lucia, that listens with her dad, and that he's a longtime listener and a longtime player, and that it's just really awesome to see. I don't think playing fantasy of any sport is a gender thing, but when you're definitely the fewer one, it's always nice to feel appreciated for speaking as loud, if not often louder, than some of the more prominent males. So shout out to her and everybody else who plays. There's a lot of women who play and women who are better than I am, but that was some fun feedback to get this week. So shout out to her.
Yeah, and so I thought you'd like going last this week. To end on that very high note. Well, yes, thank you so much to everyone who gets inspiration from the show, from us, and who just enjoys having fun and listening to the show each and every week. And of course, as always, good luck.